Hi, and welcome to the third in this series on Fragile to Agile's view on the anatomy of a digitally transformed organization. It's assumed that you've seen the first one. The first one we covered an overview of all the different components of it, and in the second one we covered this critical feature of being a layered architecture. This one's going to be focusing on the top layer and that layered architecture channels, and particularly channel management. A quick recap, as you can see here, of what we covered in the overview. There are some critical design principles for channel management and channel layer of your architecture. First, it must be channel independent, which means no business logic or no data is stored in the channel. It must be designed, user-centric design from the outside in. Envisaged as a digital interaction from the outset, not analog and then converted. Redesign as digital first, as they say. And everything's converted to and from analog to digital at the channels. So they're the most critical features of it. So let's go into something a bit more detail. Let's first of all talk about one of the things you must have in place if you're going to design this architecture, and that's a capability model. If you haven't heard about Fragile to Agile's view of capability models, please see that video. It's absolutely critical to the design of this architecture. But not just any capability model. As we joke in Fragile to Agile, not all capability models are created equal. You must have a separate capability on the model to represent the channels. For no other reason than you must be able to find a home on this business capability model for all your IT systems, as well as all your people and skills, etc. If you don't have channel management as a separate capability, you will not be able to find home for your B2B gateway, your Alexa when you're going to talk about voice channels, or you won't have it for things for your internet banking platform, etc. And this must represent each of the different channels. We've just shown 5 or 6 of them here. Some of the more critical ones for digital interactions around B2B gateways, your online, phone channel, which will still be important in the future, etc. But the most important feature of the capability model is it must identify these as separate capabilities on the model. And actually, this is one of the areas of the capability model that does change over time, as it's probably one of the areas, as we've discussed before, where a lot of innovation is happening. So in order to be able to design this target state future, you're going to need to have a capability model that separates out channel management capabilities from the others. Okay, so what's the point in going to all this? What does this actually mean in the real world if you have this channel management as a separate layer with adhering to all the rules of channel management and all the principles that we've described before? So let's try and make this real if I take you through 3 quick case studies. So first one we're going to talk about is about a university we work with. So they were faced with a dilemma in the sense that there was key demand from the Chancellor and Vice Chancellors that they deliver a student portal early, as quickly as possible, frankly. But at the same time, they were aware of the fact that their underlying systems were about to embark on a 4 or 5 year transformation and were going to go through whole-scale changes. Very least, they had student data in about 9 to 10 systems, and they were going to rationalize that. In fact, they had about 4 or 5 student management systems at the time. So by designing it using this architecture and these rules of layered architecture, in particular channel independence, they were able to deliver early the student portal and define the services as the students wanted them from the outside in. Update my student details, record absences, retrieve my timetable, etc. and design them as the students would expect to see them. Then over the subsequent 4 or 5 years, as you can see transforming here in this picture, they rationalized all the systems underneath, replaced them, sometimes new systems, sometimes just collapsing systems together. Throughout that entire 4 or 5 year journey, nothing had to change in the student portal. And in fact, the most important part is that even when they changed them, when the students came in the next day or used the portal the next time they had to, they weren't even aware anything had changed. And of course, that's very important from an external customer experience perspective, or student in this case, but it's equally important for your internal staff. If you can deliver what we call a role-based portal for your engineers, etc., and then hide away the complexity of your underlying systems, then you can work on those underlying systems and not have an impact on your user base. And don't underestimate the impact that has from a training perspective for your staff and change management, etc. Let's look at it from the other way around now. This is from a Dutch bank, which way before ESBs existed, way before any of this conversations about service-oriented architecture existed. The point I'm making here is that actually this design paradigm stands the test of time and isn't related to service-oriented architecture or anything like that, but just simply good practice. They had this pattern in place way back in the late 90s, where they had already separated out the user interface from the service logic, if you like. As a consequence, they were able to be the very first bank in the world to open a branch in Second Life, because for those who don't know, Second Life for a brief period was a multi-user, I've forgotten what the D stands for now, but one of these areas where everybody would go and interact with using avatars, and there was thought in lots of press at the time it was going to be a world changer. Didn't turn out to be the case, but that doesn't matter. It's what innovation is about. The classic example of fail fast. It didn't cost them much. They were able to open a branch in Second Life in a matter of a month because they had all of the logic already there. They just had to build the user interface to interact with the people in their virtual branch. Final little case study, one that we've been deeply involved with, and I can name the client in this case because it's public sector, but the Department of Premier and Cabinet in South Australia. We've just delivered the architecture for a single citizen services portal, covering all of the departments in the SA government, the vision being that citizens, quite rightly, shouldn't care which department of a government provides a particular service. So we'll be delivering a single portal that will then enable them to apply for a new driver's license, or even more longer term customer journeys, like a plumber leaving his qualifications and needs to interact with about 10 different government departments before they can legally start operating as a plumber. We call those citizen journeys. We'll be designing all of those in a channel independent way, initially with it being a vision for a mobile and web-based portal. But because this, and it's not just because it is a critical feature of the design, it's been designed this way, it's future-proofing. When Alexa and these other things come on, that's certainly part of the vision of the future for the Citizen Portal. We'll be able to support those new channels without requiring a rebuild of anything other than the user interface. So these are 3 real-life case studies where this really matters, this architecture, and getting the channel management right. So just as a summary, if your systems that manage your interactions with your external stakeholders, internal users, your staff, your partners, your customers, your members, citizens in the government sector, is designed in a channel upon way, it's critical for agility because you'll be able to support new channels. You must have a channel management as a capability of the capability model and factor that into the design, both at a planning level and at a detailed design level, in fact down into the coding level, if you're going to have any chance of achieving this. And finally, the channels must convert everything to digital on the way in from analog and on the way back out, if you have any analog out, back to digital on the way back out. Otherwise, you'll never be a digitally transformed organization if analog material and products still make it into how you operate your business. That's it for session 3. I hope it was of value and interest to you. Thanks very much for listening.